Hello and welcome. I am Conan Librarian with Obsidian Portal, and this is It's in the Cards. What I'm going to do is crack open a random pack of trading cards and create a brand new plug-and-play one-shot adventure or story for you to use at your roleplay gaming table at home. I'm going to do this all in one take, so aside from some jump cuts because watching me type is boring, I'm going to rip this open and find out what we have. The point of this is to create something out of randomness and to challenge myself and to put the challenge out there to you as a GM to create, sometimes from a place that's uncomfortable, but more importantly, from a place that's new and has a different kind of energy than you might be used to. So let's crack open our next story. So today I'm going to open up a pack of original TSR 1992 Series 2 collector's cards. Now these have cards from settings like Dark Sun, Spelljammer, Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, classic settings. And full disclosure, while I loved these stories and characters and everything about these modules when I played them originally, I am probably not going to recall them very well. So any hardcore fans, I apologize in advance for butchering names, story settings, anything I pull out of here, but I know this is going to have some great stuff to create something new here. So I'm going to go ahead and open these up. As I do, I'm going to throw up a couple plot points. So these are, like I've said in my previous videos, what I like to use to create a good solid story for my characters, my PCs, to dig through, my players to really engage with the story. These are very cool. I've been very excited to open them up. So I've got a box. I'll drop that. And you can see at the beginning I've got a box of these, so I'm very excited to finally, once and for all, dig into these. I'm going to put these down. Ooh, there's a bunch of cards. I've got this like 10 cards in here, 12 cards. This is going to be a lot of content. So, good friend Mary here. Okay, so first we're going to get into our story. And the story is what we use to really create the overall, like it says, story. What this is going to be about, the main theme, and overall what this is going to focus around. So first off, we have from Greyhawk, Might. So Might is a tiny, mischievous... Oh, it's mites. Mites are creatures. It's this bat-looking gremlin thing. I like that even in the background, looks like he's in a cave or something like that. So that's what we're going to say. That the story is that our adventurers, whether it's the party or whatever happens next, they're actually in a cave. And I could say they're being hunted or tracked, and he's holding this bat. He looks pretty mischievous and kind of gnarly. But I think what we're going to take from this overall, the story, is that they're in a cave system. I'm going to use this for two parts here. So first we're going to say the overall story, they're in a cave system, or underground, the Underdark. I'm also going to, pretty early this time, drop down in our question marks, that's our wild cards. As a GM, when I create, I don't like to just throw away ideas. I like to hang on to them, write them down, and make sure that I have that, because sometimes I come back to an idea and it's that key point in a story to really turn it into something special. So I don't like to just burn off ideas and throw them away. We're going to put that down in our wild cards as possible use down the line in this story. Alright, so we have our story, and we have some possible, we'll say, story grease or possible inspiration. Not only are they trapped in the underground or a cave system, but they may be trapped there and being hunted. We'll see. Next we have our hook, and our hook is what we throw out to our players to keep them engaged, to get them started in the story, or to keep them from just flat murdering, stealing, or just ruining a story or one-shot that you set out for them. The hook is what you present to hook them in. What we have is from the Forgotten Realms, Kalik. Well, the description is actually very cool. The Kalik is the manifestation of human avarice and a scourge of the greedy. that's very cool. And this card, you can see, is very angry. He's a pretty aggro looking guy. So they're trapped in this cave system, and what we're going to say is that they're trapped in this cave system. I like that they're being hunted, and I think we're going to go with classic trope here. And I think that a lot of GMs are scared of tropes. There's nothing wrong with a trope, whether you run it just classic trope, dragon and princess, rats in the basement, whatever it's going to be. The point is that your players enjoy it, and that you present it in a way that isn't just boring. You present it in a way that maybe it has a twist, maybe it's classic, but that it fully engages your players because you are willing to commit to making it entertaining for them. So I'm going to go with the classic trope here, the most dangerous game, I think that's what it is, but essentially the party is trapped in this cave system, and they are being hunted by the greedy, by the wealthy, by the angry. They're being hunted, in this case, simply for sport. So that's our hook. So I added here that why they're being hunted, and possibly by a rival. This would be a good way to throw them into this adventure. It could be just, they wake up and they're there, or they're invited somewhere and they're trapped. But maybe they're being hunted specifically so that someone can lord over them, like an old rival, that they're their pawns and their playthings. Next, we have our hero. Now, our hero is not necessarily always the good guy, and the hero could be the party. The point of the hero in a story, an adventure, a one-shot, is that it's the focus of that story, whether it's the orphan that the party is trying to help, or it's the Grand Wizard who you are trying to find the spell components for. A hero is not always just a guy in a cape. A hero is the main focus of the story. So what we have... Okay. So this is just a Spelljammer trading card checklist. So I like this, and I'm gonna try to use every card I can. I don't know about a hero in this case, but this can definitely be... What we have is, and it's neat. I mean, I'm always a huge fan of these checklists, and personally, Spelljammer is my favorite old school setting of anything. What we're gonna say here: this is a checklist. This is information. We're gonna throw that down in our wildcards here. That this represents a scroll or information. There is some sort of book, text, scroll, something. Okay, so you'll see I changed that to wildcards because why not? That's what this whole thing's about. And we drop that into our wildcards, something to possibly use in the future. So our next card, still looking for a hero. Alright, so this time it's Greyhawk. Checklist. Okay. And Greyhawk, if you've never spent time in the Greyhawk world or campaign setting, it's very cool, very classic. Greyhawk is a lot of fun. I don't want to just drop this again into the wildcards. I want to use it. I don't want to just cast off till I find something that fits exactly. The point of this is to create and go and keep the juices flowing. So what we're going to say, we have Greyhawk, we already have information, but in this case, our hero is going to be someone who's focused around information or knowledge or scrolls. So we're going to say that our hero is a scribe that we have with the party. And I don't think that's far of a stretch. And it may be why they're in the cave system to begin with, and maybe this hook, why they're down there, maybe they're not actually after the party, they might be after the scribe. So that's going to be our hero, is a scribe that the party has with them in this setting. So we have our hero, now we need our villain, and a villain, just like the hero, does not have to be a guy in a cape or a mask or whatever you may consider a classic villain. They don't have to have a dagger or an evil dog. A villain is the person, place, or thing in the story that really causes negative consequences or drives the heroes or the party to have to react to some sort of conflict. In this case, our villain is, come on, our villain is, this is now a checklist for the Forgotten Realms. Okay. And again, I love these cards. Just having a checklist because I am in fact someone who collects. I don't know if you can tell. Again, I don't want to just throw this down into the wild card. So we have our hero is a scribe. Our villain, I don't want to say is just another scribe. But if there's someone who, what I've got here is someone who holds important information. We have a collector of information. We already have that they're trapped underground, they're being hunted. Our villain is someone who is hunting this scribe for that information, and not just to collect it and write it down, but in this case to specifically obtain that information, maybe permanently. Maybe there's a specific concept to how this villain does this, whether they suck it out of their brain, whether they absorb that person, whatever that's going to be. In this case, our villain is someone who takes this information in a way that would make someone want to run. I don't want to say they're just collecting it for evil deeds. We're going to say that they're doing it because the way that they do it would make someone not want to have been collected. So that's our villain. All right, so now we need our conflict. And our conflict is where the party, the hero, the villain, everything meets, whether it's the devices set by the villain or the consequences of the hero or party's actions, whatever it is. The conflict is where it all comes to a head and something happens in the story when all of these consequences are finally had all out at once. And we have Glenola Oaktree. She looks like a bounty hunter. I'm just going to put that right out. She has rope, she has this longsword, she has what looks like a bag, and I'm going to say it kind of gives me a feeling of heavy with gold. Also, Glenola is a male, so sorry, Glenola. But what we have then is bounty hunter, bounty someone. I mean, we've already have that they're hunting, in this case, the villain. That's what we're going to do with our villain here, though. And part of this, I know I'm looking for this conflict, but part of what we're doing here and part of what this challenge is to take information and create. Nothing that you create as you mold your story has to be set in stone. Nothing you create has to be written down that can't be crossed out or written over or erased and rewritten. So in this case, our villain isn't just a rival. Our villain is someone who is known for this. This collector is actually someone who is hired in this seedy underworld to collect information. So we're going to use this card, instead of just making it part of the conflict, we're going to use this card to kind of build a better backstory for, in this case, our villain. So we have more about our villain. We're going to see what else we get here. This is Usteria. So Usteria, actually, in this case, I don't know if she's wearing a ring or if she's bleeding. And there's a big description. If you haven't seen these cards before, hop online, check these out. These are very cool because it has literal stats for you to use in-game for this stuff, which is very cool. This is something you can use not just as inspiration, but in this case, as literal game material to help you run an old TSR module, which is pretty cool, or AD&D 2nd edition. Usteria, she looks kind of aloof. She's holding this wand. She looks like she's bleeding almost, though it may just be the picture of the card. I like Usteria here. I like this picture, and I like what it does for us as far as filling out our hero. Because in this case, we've talked about being hunted, this collector bounty hunter type who uh, gains this knowledge in a particular way. In this case, Usteria is going to be more inspiration for our hero here. What we're going to say is that our hero is already wounded. Our our plot hook that they're in this cave, they're being hunted. The party is there, and they have to help this pre-wounded, this already wounded scribe who knows that this bounty hunter is coming, and that's how they're able to get the party hooked in and to get the party to help them. Alright, so we have our more about our hero here, and I really like where this is going. These cards, like I said, they're already pre-built. They're D&D as it stands, but I like the story that we're digging out here. I think at this point I'd already say this is probably running longer than just a one-shot, but we're getting a lot of really good stuff out of this. I still want to find a conflict, so I'm going to say our next story, regardless of what it is, I'm going to call it our conflict, and in this case is Burgonet. In this case, an evil wizard. He has, I mean, it looks like he's reflecting here. This is from Ravenloft, so I know I know this character. I know this character, and I absolutely cannot remind myself. I'm not going to read the card. There's, again, all sorts of text and stats. I don't want to read the card and get drawn into who that is, but essentially what we're looking at is this wizard here. We have our party who is helping this wounded scribe. We have this collector who's coming after them and has already taken, well, not taken, but has already injured them in the attempt to collect this information. And our conflict here, where they all meet, where this becomes, where it all comes to a head in the story, meets its crux, is with a wizard. In this case, we're going to say that that wizard is an ally to, well, if they're underground, why are they underground? I said previously that the villain trapped them in there. Both the villain is just hunting them while they're there, and in this case, our hero actually came to this location on purpose. This hero came to this location to try to find help. In this case, we're going to say this wizard, this ally of the hero. So they're still kind of trapped. It's not a familiar territory. It's something, rather, it's some place that the hero knows of, but may not be entirely familiar with. So our conflict is that they finally find this wizard in this cave that the hero is hoping will help them and protect them. So we have this conflict, and I kind of feel like it's only halfway. And some of these packs I've only got like 4 or 5 cards, but in this case I still have a fair number to go. So I'm going to see if I can't flesh this out a little bit more with our conflict with, in this case, Grindlethorpe from Dragonlance. And this guy looks a little haughty. I'm not going to read the description, but just taking a look at him, the color palette here and the look on this guy's face, we said that they were seeking this mage, and they finally find this mage that the scribe is looking for. But what if part of our conflict is they get there, the villain doesn't even have to be involved in this, but the mage themselves doesn't care to help the scribe, and what's worse, also wants to collect this information that the scribe has. I think that's a very cool twist, is that this scribe has been spending all this time talking about this mage, whether it's a mentor or whoever, but this mage who's going to help them, this mage that this scribe knows can protect them or give them safe haven or do something to help them. But when they finally get there and the mage realizes who this scribe is or what the scribe has or what this collector is looking for, this mage decides to try to collect it themselves. I think that's a very cool conflict to kind of jar the party with, when this guy suddenly turns from being this beacon that they've been searching for in this dark cave system to another yet dark enemy. Perfect. I think that works out really well. I think that's a very cool conflict. In this case, we have our action and conclusion. So the action and conclusion is what happens afterwards. And I've talked about this before. In a book or a movie, you watch it, you read it, crux of the story, the main conflict happens, and then the fallout, and that's it. You read the chapter, it ends, you close the book, and that's what happened. As a GM, you need to be prepared for what your party might do and how they might respond. So we have this very cool conflict that I think would lead to the party having to fight this mage themselves. Maybe they win, maybe they lose. Maybe they decide to work with the mage and harvest this scribe themselves, whatever it's going to be. You need to be prepared as a GM to have options open. You can decide one track, this is what happens, cutscene, good job, this is the story. Or you can decide to throw out several possible endings. Now, I have a bunch of cards here, and I've been, fiddling with them, but refusing to look at them. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to 1, 2, 3 words, throw out a couple conclusions that we can draw using the next several cards. So I'm going to take these cards, I don't know what they say yet, and I'm going to come up with a possible couple of actions and conclusions. So first we have Logan on fire, either being sacrificed or burned, or possibly casting the spell. But I'm going to say that in this case, this action or conclusion is that the mage manages to harvest the scribe. I also have this guy, Manawabe, from the Forgotten Realms. Powerful physique, looks ready to do battle. And I think in this case, what I'm going to say is that the scribe actually decides to somehow use this information themselves to become or to collect and grow. So essentially the scribe harvests himself for whatever it is this collector is after. And then we also have Glitterback, a very stout dwarf, all adorned in gold plate, which is very neat. And what we're going to say, because it looks very almost regal. They look strong, they look powerful, they look unafraid. And in this case, what we're going to say is that in this case that the scribe decides to... Well, no, we've already done a couple things with the scribe. So what we're going to say in this case is that the party stands to defend from both the mage and the collector, as well as the scribe themselves. The party decides that maybe no one should have this, whether it means they are going to kill the scribe to get rid of whatever it is. I'm not sure. So that's what our conclusions are going to be. I know I kind of rambled. Let me put it down, type it out, so it's a little less messy. Okay. So I think those are some very good conclusions. I think any of those work pretty well. Now I still have another 4 cards. I still have some wild card spots here, and I had to shrink this down a little bit because these cards are heavy. There's a lot of good story to glean from these, and I'm starting to run out of room here. I think what I'm going to do is, just like I did some conclusions here, I'm going to wild card the next several of these and see what we get out of them. Kind of one glance, some information, go from there. Okay. Retilinus. Fighter. I mean, these weapons he has, he looks like a pit fighter, he looks like a gladiator. I like the haircut, the hairstyle. What we're going to say from this, though, is that there is definitely a fight. And by fight, I mean, I already called it gladiator, so we're going to say a free-for-all here. That's what we're going to throw out. A free-for-all. We've got, Chandraskar. Pretty severe looking guy. He looks pretty serious, but in chainmail, the shield, he looks he looks classic hardcore knight. So we had a free-for-all. We've got this severe knight who's about principles. So that's our wild card here, is that it's about principles of the scribe being someone who has the information and must protect it. The principle of the mage who decides that they have to take this information for themselves because they are the only ones powerful enough to do the right thing with it. And we even have the principle of the collector who is doing a job. He has his own code. He is lawful evil. He has a code that he follows. He's just doing his job using the skill set that he has, Liam Neeson style, to hunt down and find what he is after. We have Zenobia. That's pretty cool. An axe and a pick. Very stout. And you know, we had this other card here too. This guy. I like her. I almost want to use her as an actual character, and as you're using this, maybe you would use her as an actual character, but I think what she presents and represents, besides being a dwarf female with a beard, which is awesome, is that she represents the fortitude of the parties all around. So the scribe, you know, a lot of times we describe a scribe as weak or meager, but in this case, this scribe has, we already talked about principle, this scribe has their fortitude, this scribe has what they need to survive. We have the fortitude of this mage who is, again, principled in what they believe that they're the rightful ones to keep or have this, whatever it is the scribe has, and they are not someone to be trifled with, not just some meddling old mage, but an actual powerful wizard. And then we have this bounty hunter, the collector, who's not just some sly, sneaky cut purse. This collector is in fact hardened. This collector is in fact aware of what they're doing. They have their principles, they live by the job, the rule, the contract, but they're not someone who simply slinks away, and they're not someone who simply accomplishes things by deceit. They're someone with focus and the fortitude needed to get a job done regardless of what it takes. And then the last one, Kishiria. I like her a lot. And it honestly kind of reminds me, here we have the mage, wounded but still moving forward. We've talked about the mage also having the fortitude. I like the idea that the mage doesn't just have fortitude, they don't just have principle, but that they are in fact as fierce as Kishiria. So, I'm going to get these wild cards down. Okay, you'll see I had to resize yet again. A lot of information here, and I want to go through it. We have, at this point, a very thick story. This is something I think you can really throw out to keep the players invested. This is a lot of good character interaction. There's a lot of good character story and development in that you can present this scribe, who in this case is not just some bumbling pencil pusher at some monastery. You have this scribe who is fierce. You have this scribe who is committed, who has their own principles. You have this mage. We'll go through this and kind of flesh it out all as one story. But the main gist of this, they are trapped underground. Whether they are trapped there initially or they're drawn underground, they are sufficiently locked into being underground, whether it's the Underdark cave system, whatever works best in your setting. And they're underground with this scribe who is being hunted by a collector, someone who wants what this scribe has. And we have in our wild cards a couple different things: a text, a book, a scroll. I don't think it's just a text or a book or a scroll. I think in this case, those lists, what we have are information. That's what this scribe has, is information that this collector has been hired to harvest in a way that is entirely unpleasant and pretty awful. Whether, again, maybe they're eating part of their victim's brains, whatever it is. The party is with this scribe in this cave system, being hunted by the collector, searching for this mage that the scribe is sure can help him, whether it's stopping the bounty hunter, maybe getting the information out of the scribe so that it can't be harvested, or in some way just ending this chase. And when they get to this person, it turns out that this mage also wants this information, and you could play it as pretty obvious up top. You could play it as the mage coming to the realization as they interact with the party and with the scribe, or it could be a trap from the get. It doesn't really matter. The action or conclusion here at this point is that while I have a bunch of these listed and I want you to decide what works best for you, I think for my style as a GM, what I would say is that it doesn't become a free-for-all. I think in this case, I like that it's fighting the mage with the scribe, because as we have down here in our wild cards, our scribe is just as committed and strong and ferocious as the rest of them. So the party is fighting this mage to keep this mage they thought who would help them from harvesting the scribe. I think that works out really well, and with this action conclusion, you could then say afterwards they deal with this bounty hunter. Maybe the scribe uses what they have to defeat the mage. They burn this information, they use this spell, whatever it is, and by the time the bounty hunter gets there, their contract is null. There is no longer anything for the bounty hunter to collect. Maybe the mage has been killed, maybe the mage gave up this information or rather the scribe gave up the information or used whatever it was to kill the mage, and the bounty hunter at this point has no more job to do. They see this as a contract void. They're not getting paid. They simply leave, and the party is left to deal with the fact that they have this mage that's been killed, they have this scribe that's sacrificed, and they have this bounty hunter who doesn't really care about them. Their job is done. Their contract is over, and they want to go about their way. It's up to you as the GM to present how this ends, but I think I would literally present it as they deal with this mage and this scribe, and the bounty hunter gets there and is no longer involved because the bounty hunter doesn't have a reason to be. I think there's a lot to this. I would have a lot of fun with this, presenting this in different ways and really building these characters, because there's a lot of depth to them. Okay, so we have this really, I think, in-depth story that would play out probably not as a one-shot, but over several sessions. I think it works out really well, and we need a title. I always like to put kind of a bow on my stories and when I really put a lot of work into something, because one, it's a lot easier to find in my notebooks or my computer when I've titled something, but two, because I like to be able to present something as a work of fiction. I want it to feel round, and when I write a story, when I create adventures like this, it's not just, looking up creature ratings and difficulty challenges. It's about creating a story. So I think I have a title in this case. It might be a little cheesy, but it's my sense of humor. I think it works. You know, you put a key under a rock, they have this information, they're in a cave system. Cheesy, I know, but I like it. So I think this story works out really well. I'm excited to open more of these cards in the future. I have a whole box of them, so we'll see what we get into. Make sure, drop a comment below. Let me know what you would do with some of these cards. I flew through and just used the last, 6 or 7 as story fodder, but I think there's even more to be done with this. Let me know what you would do. And don't forget to, when you're making your stories, hop online to obsidianportal.com, your one stop for all your campaign management needs. More depth than a bag of holding, more features than a bag of tricks. Obsidian Portal has everything you need to create stories, adventures, one-shots, maps, creatures, items, characters, whatever it is. Your adventures don't just stay at the tavern. Why should your game just stay at the table?